Hi, welcome back to Apron Improv. Today I'm going to teach you how to cook a dish that is like something you can do to impress your friends or your family, but it's also simple enough that you can do it on a weeknight. So it involves chicken, potatoes, and a bunch of fresh herbs and some sides that will actually complement it very nicely. The side that I'll be doing will be a bacon, onion, and kale side, and that will all wilt down together and nicely pair with the chicken that we've baked. Let's get started. So what I'm working with today is a bone-in chicken breast. And I'm going to salt, pepper, and garlic powder all sides of this, even inside the underside of the bone. So all sides. I've also washed and cleaned this chicken breast off already so that it was good to go when we started. So doing all sides. And then we have garlic powder. You could use a fresh garlic. If you had one and you wanted to, you could just go ahead and either slice it really fine, or you could also grate it and just have it sear on top of the chicken while we're cooking it. So chicken is kind of nicely seasoned at this point. I'm going to turn my pan on over here. I'm using a cast iron pan, and I'm going to be using ghee today, which is a clarified butter. It doesn't have any dairy in it, so it's actually a Whole30 approved. That is a nice flavor as well because you get a butter-like flavor. You could also do this with olive oil too. I'm going to heat up my cast iron pan. I'm going to be using this today. The amount of ghee that you actually need in the bottom of the pan is very minimal. I'm only going to use about a teaspoon actually. It is going to give lots and lots of flavor. It's going to evenly coat the bottom of the pan, and I'm going to let this heat up before I put the chicken in it. This is a grease catcher. I'm able to put this on top of my pans whenever I am searing or frying something. That way all that splatter doesn't come out and hit you or go all over your oven or on your floor. So keep this handy. So all the oil has melted into the bottom of my pan. I'm going to turn it down a little bit because it's smoking. This is going to make a loud sizzle. I'm going to sear this first, bone side down. My shield. But we will sear all these sides. So we'll flip it over and we'll do the top second. So while our chicken is cooking in the background, I'm going to start cutting apart some onion and some potatoes, which is going to go around the dish after the chicken has seared. I use about a half an onion, well, maybe not this big, maybe quarter of an onion in slices with my potatoes for this dish. So I like to cut some nice thin wedges because I'm also going to cut my potatoes like that. The reason I cut them that way is because there's an evener cook whenever you put it into the pan. And it doesn't take quite as long with potatoes cut in slices versus small chunks. So onion, again potatoes. Cut into small slices because they cook faster. Whew. So the other thing is that I already have peeled these potatoes and I put them in a bowl of cold water because one really nice thing that you can do to save yourself some time is you can peel your potatoes actually a day ahead of time if you know you're going to cook this or prep this and won't have the time the following day. All you have to do is store your potatoes in cold water in your refrigerator and they won't turn color. You have to cover them with water so that they don't oxidize. And that is that brown gray color that you'll get. If you wanted to use something that wasn't potatoes for this dish, another really nice complement would probably be a butternut squash or a Brussels sprout, because you could put those into the pans with the chicken and they would take a good amount of cooking time to soften in the oven. then you could make it more keto approved. If you haven't gotten yourself a pair of these tongs yet, go get a pair. This will make your world a lot easier when it comes to cooking. So, using my shield, I'm going to flip this. This is actually a little bit lighter than what I would like it, but I will flip it purposely onto that side here again. For the side to go along with this dish, it is going to include bacon, onion, and kale. And all of these things are going to be cooked together in one skillet. Different skillet than the chicken. This is a bacon end. This is what I've found to be the most affordable and most bang for your buck piece of meat that you can get in a deli. You don't have to buy slices of bacon because you actually want them to be a little bit bigger and chunkier than what a typical slice would give you. So I'm just going to go ahead and cut this into some bigger pieces. Yeah. And then I'm going to slice it here. See, this looks like a slice of bacon. So you're essentially just doing the same thing, but you're getting meatier pieces. Same smoky goodness flavor. I don't know what bacon doesn't pair well with. You just want them to be probably like a little smaller than a 1-inch cube, and then you'll be good. Keep in mind that you'll want to drain the grease off of this too. If you have a very fatty type piece of bacon, you'll want to, drain off the fat out of the pan before you add your kale and your onion. Not all of it, but most of it. This is just one bunch of kale that I bought in the grocery store. Normally during the summer, I would actually grow this kale, and it is so easy to grow. You can buy a tiny plant at any greenhouse for like $1. You probably get 6 for $1. And then you can put them in a sidewalk, you can put them in a potter, and they will grow all summer long. So I'm going to scooch my enameled Dutch oven over here. I'm going to throw my bacon into it. The other thing that I like to make a point about is that I never cut meat on a wooden cutting board. It harbors bacteria, so if you're able to get a plastic cutting board that you can put into your dishwasher, it's a lot more safe to actually use. I love a wooden cutting board for things like vegetables, but always cut meat on plastic. So I'm actually going to move my potatoes into a bowl because I need this cutting board. So potatoes in here, potatoes and onions. Yes, this is a knife I use for the potatoes. Keep your knife split. All right. So then I'm going to go ahead and cut open this onion. Always keep a garbage bowl handy. Makes things a lot nicer for your cleanup. Okay, so smaller pieces of onion go in this. We're not going to slice those like we did with the potato onion. Whew. I'll start crying on camera. That's a good one. All right, so small slices. Small slices equals small cubes. So onions go in this pan with the bacon. You can also use a shallot. That isn't quite as strong. But I promise this will actually cook down quite nicely whenever you use your kale. So just going to cut the ends off of this. You can devein kale actually. Some people don't like this center part that kind of goes up the back of the leaf, and that's because a lot of people think it's too tough. All you have to do is just kind of rip the leaves off the edge. You can throw that out. If you want more fiber, leave them in. I mean, they will cook down some, but they're not going to cook down to the point where you don't have to chew them. If you want a green that does that, you might stick to something a little less robust, maybe like a collard green. Also, you'll see whenever this kale cooks down that it is not going to amount to be near as big as the pile as you see here. The chicken is sizzling away over there. That takes a long time to sear, actually. You'll see that if you have the time, you need to let your chicken sear on each side for a minimum of like 10 minutes because that's what you want. You want to lock in all the flavor. You want to lock in the juices. You want to lock in the moisture that goes into chicken. Really any meat. You have to sear all sides. If you don't sear it, it's gonna turn out blah. Like you're not gonna like it. It'll be bland. We're smoking a little bit. That is perfect. Yes, it looks a little dark, but I'd rather it be a little bit dark than be white at all, like to be not seared at all. So same thing with the other one. Same thing with the other one. So now we're going to sear the sides. So we're going to go ahead and start cooking our side dish. Onions and bacon are in together. I just turned on the heat. You don't have to preheat this pan with bacon. It's just as easy to throw it all in at the same time and start it because your bacon is slowly going to cook down. The fat is slowly going to release. You don't want to start bacon in a hot pan because that would promote it to crisp up around the edges and wouldn't get fully cooked through the middle. It would also cause a bit of a hazard if it started to splatter all over you. So the best way to do this is actually to over low heat to allow your onions to become translucent. They will get very tender in all of this. And you'll be able to see what I mean here in a few short minutes. The other thing I like about these enameled cast iron pans is that nothing really sticks to them. Easy cleanup. So we'll let that all cook down. And then we're gonna add our kale. Getting nice. I flipped my chicken. This side is nice and brown as well, waiting on the other side. When that is done, we will start adding the potatoes and the onions, and then also 2 more herbs onto the top of it. And it will go right into the oven. I'm gonna add just a splash of chicken broth into this to kind of lift all the good bits from the bottom of the pan. See how that lifts right off in there? It's a lifesaver. So onions are nice and translucent. Bacon will continue to cook. And then we're going to add the kale into this. This will also give the kale a bit of liquid so that it steams whenever I put the lid on it, and that will help it to cook down a bit. All sides of chicken are now seared. Watch yourself. See it? That's the way you want it to look. And I've broken the skin a bit, but that's really okay. So this is super hot, but this is mostly just chicken juice at this point. So we have our 2 pieces of chicken here. Now I'm going to line the pan with the potatoes. Potatoes and onions. So try and spread it around a little bit. It's very homey styled. You have to touch your food. You can't love your food if you don't touch it. So that's how I feel anyway. You don't know what you're doing if you don't get your hands in there. I can't fit any more potatoes into that dish, or it will just overflow and it will be a disaster in my oven. So anyway, 2 other herbs that I'm going to use. This is rosemary. You can get this dried in any grocery store. This is actually some of the rosemary I grew in my garden, and I dried it in a dehydrator, which is also very, very affordable. So I'm going to kind of roll it around in my hand and crush it and sprinkle it all over. Rosemary is very aromatic. You don't need a whole lot of it to go a long way in this dish. That's probably all I will do. Another bit of herbs that I have is some fresh thyme, and I pulled that out of a garden. Yes, it's February and it's living somehow. I don't think thyme really ever dies, especially if it's in a nice warm place outside. So I'm going to pull that off the stem and just kind of sprinkle it around. Going to add a little bit more salt to our potatoes. The last thing you want is an unseasoned potato. Salt and pepper. These potatoes are also going to cook in all the little bits that are in the bottom of this pan that we seared the chicken into. We didn't move the chicken out. It all stays in the same pan, so this is easy cleanup. Now that I have all my seasonings and all the components into this dish, I am going to tent it with foil, and then we'll pop it into the oven at 375 for approximately 35 to 45 minutes. You all know that shiny side of foil goes down, right? Yes, the shiny side goes down. This reflects the heat from the oven inside of the dish of food that you are cooking. If you put the shiny side up, it reflects the heat away from the food you're cooking. In the oven. All right, so that little bit of chicken broth or chicken stock that we added has evaporated and has left the pan bottom clean, and now we are ready to add the kale. The other thing I like about these cutting boards is that they bend. They act as scoops and easy ways to transfer my food from prep area to cooking area. So we'll just let that cook on low heat, and every now and then, probably every 3 to 5 minutes, you want to take a spoon in there and toss it around and make sure that it's cooking thoroughly and evenly. This right here is an instant read digital thermometer. You can get these online. This one's from Amazon. I think it cost me less than $6. This is how we're going to check our chicken temperature. Chicken should also reach an internal safe temperature of 165. So I check the chicken. Oh, chicken is good. That's perfect. Also make sure that you insert the thermometer into the thickest part of the meat. Potatoes are also done. See how they just fall apart when I poke them with a fork? And it smells to die for. So I'm actually gonna take it out of the oven. I am going to let this rest. It is really important whenever you cook a meat that you have to let it rest. Like, don't dive into it. I know, fight the urge, but you have to give it at least 10 minutes so that the juices redistribute throughout the meat. I can't stress the importance of this enough. If you cut into it, it will be dry. So checking our kale, it has nicely wilted down. See that bacon, the chicken stock has all been absorbed. The onions are almost invisible at this point because they've become so translucent and cooked through it. You can add a little bit of pepper to this. I added a tiny bit of salt to help the kale wilt. Make sure you don't add too much salt onto this because your bacon is already salty and your chicken stock will, or your chicken broth will also be salty. If you wanted to amp this up a little bit, I would add maybe a 1/4 cup of heavy cream and just let it toss it around and let it become creamy and buttery, and it would be to die for. I'm gonna use the healthier version of this tonight, and I'm gonna eat it just like this. I've let the chicken rest for at least 10 minutes. I've allowed the juice to redistribute and be evenly, evenly distributed throughout the chicken meat, and so we can reveal and plate. So you can see it has really tenderized these potatoes. And it is what makes this dish have oodles of flavor. So there we have those. All right. Then we have our kale and bacon side. Go ahead and put a scoop of this next to it. Lots of greens. They're good for you. All right. And there you have it. That is the seared chicken with a side of potatoes and onions, as well as kale with bacon and onion. I'm just gonna add a little bit of parsley onto these potatoes for flair. This is fresh parsley, goes nicely. You could have also added that at the beginning of the dish whenever we were cooking this in the oven. You can really choose whatever spices fit your fancy. This is a very versatile dish. You can make it with different root vegetables. You can make it keto friendly. You can make it Whole30 friendly. You can make it anything that you want to. If you've tried this meal, please comment below. I want to know how it turned out and what you thought about it and if you liked it. Don't forget to like and subscribe to my channel so that you never miss fantastic meals like this. See you next time.